How's it going, everybody? ZBilbs back here with another ranking video, and today I'm going to be looking at all 17 Iron Maiden albums. I just reviewed Senjutsu a little bit ago, and so now you get to see where amongst all 17 of the other albums I would put it. Now, some words of warning before you go into this video. I am a new Iron Maiden fan. I've heard some of their songs a while ago, but I only listened through all of the albums just a couple months ago, so I have no nostalgia for any Iron Maiden albums, any Iron Maiden songs. Everything is just right there. And I'm also generally new to the whole metal scene, so I guarantee you there's going to be quite a few picks in there that are, absolute classics to a lot of people that aren't as high as others would think. But for Iron Maiden, just keep this in mind that I don't think there are any bad albums. I think there's definitely ones that are stronger than others, but I'd say all except for maybe one album is worth listening to. So without any more words on this, let's just get rolling. So starting off at 17th place, it is the one album that I think is not worth listening to, and that is X Factor. Now, I know this one is generally seen as the good Blaze Bayley album out of the two, and I definitely disagree with that. I think this has got two, maybe three alright songs. I like The Edge of Darkness. I like the whole, Apocalypse Now vibes in there. Sign of the Cross, that one's decent. People really like Lord of the Flies. I don't love it. I think it's alright. And then there's a couple other ones that are alright, but it's really just a mediocre album. There's nothing in there that stands out to me. I think Man on the Edge is kind of a popular one. I can't even remember it. It really doesn't jump out to me at all. It's not a bad album. It's definitely mediocre. It's just not worth listening to, in my opinion. But moving on to my 16th spot, and that is one from the reunion era, and it is Dance of Death. Now, this one really hurts to put so low because it has got two absolutely amazing classic Iron Maiden songs, and that is Passchendaele, a lot of people's up there in their maybe top 20 favorite Iron Maiden songs, and for me, Dance of Death, which is in my top 5 Iron Maiden songs. Now you must be like, with those two, how is this one so low? Because those are the only two that I really enjoy from this album. There's a couple others that I think are probably alright in there. I can't really remember any totally bad ones, but for me, it's just kind of a boring album, just like X Factor. There's some songs that are like alright here and there, but nothing that really jumps out at me. I think it's just a very sort of all-around mediocre album with a lot of songs that I just like, yeah, it's alright, but pass, wouldn't care listening to it again. Next up, at number 15, I've got another album that I see a lot of people rank pretty low, and I tend to agree, and that is No Prayer for the Dying. This is definitely the weakest of the original classic Bruce Dickinson era, and it really kind of feels flat as far as, originality, as far as just fun stuff. It just kind of feels like they were just like, yeah, let's just put something out there and see what happens. And it's really kind of disappointing, this coming right off the back of Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. There's one great song in there, and that is Mother Russia. I know I've seen there's one guy on YouTube that thinks is the worst one out there. I don't get it. I think this one's awesome. Holy Smoke is another short but really fun one. I think Tail Gunner is alright. There's some others that people really enjoy, like Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. I don't much care for that one. But then there's some absolutely atrocious songs in there, like Hooks in You. And pretty much everything else, I think, is just lame. No Prayer for the Dying, some people like that. I think it's kind of lame. All around, just like the other two, just mediocre, kind of just skippable songs. That's, I guess, a little more consistent than the two below this one. A little bit more fun with Mother Russia. But all in all, definitely a disappointing classic Bruce album. But moving on to number 14, it is another album in the reunion era, and that is The Final Frontier. This one I definitely see opinions range from really low to kind of in the middle, and I'm definitely kind of low middle for this one too. I think there's definitely some absolutely fantastic songs in there. Where the Wild Wind Blows and The Talisman are two that stand out like right away as absolutely classic, fantastic Iron Maiden songs. I also like the actual Final Frontier one, the something something from outer space, whatever the first track of the album was. That one's kind of interesting, but once again this one just suffers as just not very consistent. It's just kind of mediocre song after mediocre song, and it doesn't really feel like there's any flow to this album. It all just feels like just this track and this track and this track, and it's just all over the place. As good as some songs might be on it, it just doesn't work really well as an album. And you've got that space cover art, but not really any of them feel really spacey besides the first track in there. And really, it's just another one of those albums that you could probably just listen to The Talisman and When the Wild Wind Blows and just skip the rest of it. So it's a shame, but that's what's coming at number 14. Moving on to number 13, I always have plenty of controversial picks, and this is probably my first very controversial pick, and that is Killers at number 13. Now, I generally am not quite as big of a fan of the classic Paul DiMaggio stuff as a lot of people are. A lot of people, their Paul's two albums are all-time favorite, got some of the best songs in there, and for me, when it comes to his albums, there's like a couple songs in there that are great, and then the rest I'm like, yeah, I don't really care. This one, what really makes this album for me is Murders in the Rue Morgue. That is an absolutely fantastic song. I love everything about that. Wrathchild's also good. A lot of people put the up there as one of the best Iron Maiden songs of all time. I think it's just good. I don't think it's great. Yeah, and then the instrumental Genghis Khan is also a lot of fun. I'm not much of a fan of Killers or the rest of the classic songs on here. Um, all in all, just a decent, average, solid album, but really nothing special in my opinion. But speaking of the classic Paul albums, next up, just ahead by a hair at number 12, I have got Iron Maiden, the original album. So a lot of respect to this album for bringing Iron Maiden out there, and the first of what would be one of the best heavy metal bands of all time, or their albums. And this does got some really solid songs on there. I really like, generally when it comes to Paul's songs, with an exception of Murders in the Rue Morgue, I really like his more subdued, more just nice, pleasant sounding vocal songs. And for this album, it's Remember Tomorrow for me. That one is just so just mellow and sweet and harmonious and just awesome. I also really like Strange World. I think that one's underrated. I also like the instrumental on here, Transylvania. Other than that, there's a couple other decent ones in there. There's the actual title track, Iron Maiden, in there. A lot of people love that one. I think I don't love it. There's also a lot of people's, one of their favorite songs, Phantom of the Opera. I think that one's good. I don't love that one as much as other people. And then the rest of them, it's just like, yeah, it's all right. But just like Killers, there's nothing besides a couple of them here or there that really stick out to me. I think I like Murders in the Rue Morgue more than any song on this one, but I think this album is just a little bit more consistent than Killers, and that's why it's just ahead of it by a hair. But next up at number 11, it is most people's last placed pick. I think I've seen maybe like one or two people who have not put this at last place, and I'm one of those crazy people, and it is Virtual 11. Virtual 11, I honestly think is really underrated because they've got some absolutely, at least one of my favorite Iron Maiden songs of all time in there. Most people you think in The Klansman, but for me, it is Como Estais Amigos. I think Blaze Bayley, his vocals really shine in here. You can actually hear just how good of a singer he actually is in this one. It's just beautiful, really interesting, fun lyrics, some really solid guitar work in there. Just an awesome song all around. I also really enjoy Future Real. As I said before, The Klansman is all right. I think there's one other decent one, but the rest of them are mediocre, and especially I think this one has probably the worst Iron Maiden song of all time. That's Angel and the Gambler. I don't know what they were thinking with that one. It's absolutely atrocious. But overall, I would say honestly, the good outshines the bad for this album. I honestly don't know why people hate this so much. Let me know in the comments. Why people hate it, why you hate it. I think it's an alright album. But moving on to number 10, now we're getting into the real heavy hitters. Every single album from here on out is a really solid album. Starting off at number 10, that is Brave New World. Now, the first of the reunion era, I think Quest for Metal has this as his all-time favorite album, and I can definitely see why, because there's a lot of really solid songs in there. For me, the standout is The Wicker Man. That's a standout for a lot of people. I also really like a lesser talked about song in there. The Nomad is really good. Also, the title track, Brave New World, is pretty solid. But other than that, I see there's songs that people put on there and like, oh yeah, this is so good, like Blood Brothers and Ghost of the Navigator. I don't really see it for those ones. I'm not a huge fan of that. But all in all, it's just, it's a decent album. It's not spectacular. It's not one of the best, definitely, but there's definitely a lot to like in this album. Next up at number 9, I've got A Matter of Life and Death. This is another really solid reunion era album. They've some of my favorite songs in there: Out of the Shadows, Brighter Than a Thousand Suns, The Legacy, The Reincarnation of Benjamin Brieg. All really solid songs on there. Once again, it's a similar thing as Brave New World and other stuff, where it's like, besides those ones, I think there's one or two that are decent. I think The Pilgrim is also pretty solid. But besides that, I think it's just kind of mediocre. Even, I would say, just Brighter Than a Thousand Suns and Out of the Shadows are the only two really great ones, in my opinion, from this one. The rest are just, like, good to mediocre. So, pretty much just, like, decent album, definitely good tracks, but just better albums out there. Like this next one, which is a lot of people's favorite, and that is Somewhere in Time. Now, it's one of those classic Bruce era albums, and, they've got some really good classic songs on there. Wasted Years and Alexander the Great are the two really great ones that pop out to me. There's some other decent ones in there. The title track, Caught Somewhere in Time, is good, but overall, I think this one is a little bit overrated because there's some decent ones here and there, but besides Wasted Years and Alexander the Great, this album doesn't do it all that much for me. I think it's good. It's definitely got higher highs than the albums below it, which is why it's higher up. But once again, I just think this album lacks consistency of ones higher than it. Like this next one, we're getting controversial again here. Another one of people's favorites. Pretty much all the classic Bruce era ones are a lot of people's favorites, but this is another one of those, and that is Peace of Mind. Peace of Mind is, it's another just classic album. It's got a lot of people's all-time favorite Iron Maiden song on it, The Trooper, which, what else is there to say about The Trooper? It is absolutely spectacular. You've got Where Eagles Dare, you've got Flight of Icarus, you've got some that a lot of people love. I don't like as much. I think they're good, like Revelation, like To Tame a Land, like Die With Your Boots On. So just another really decent one. The main ones from this one for me is obviously The Trooper, and Where Eagles Dare, Flight of Icarus. Um, great songs, solid album, but once again, I just think there are definitely better ones out there. Just like this next album, this is another really underrated later original Bruce era album, and that, of course, is Fear of the Dark. A lot of people tend to put this album as like one of the lower, more bad albums, and I guess I can sort of see why, because this one definitely has some really high highs in songs, but it has a lot of just boring, middling, lame songs in there. Like Weekend Warrior, like Judas Be My Guide. But really, I think the good from this album massively outshines the bad because it has got some of the best Iron Maiden songs in there. Like two in particular, the title track, "Fear the Dark," is so good. One of my favorite, definitely top 5 Iron Maiden songs. And "Afraid to Shoot Strangers," so freaking good. There's some other solid ones in there, like "Be Quick or Be Dead," and also "Wasting Love" is pretty good. Besides that, it's definitely one of those more like, just middling. There's too many not so great songs here and there, but I think just the really great songs in this album hold it up and make it one of the better Iron Maiden albums. But moving on to number 5, I have got Book of Souls. This album, I know it's definitely kind of split. A lot of people put this one really high, a lot of people put it really low. And, what really makes this album for me is, once again, just like Fear of the Dark, is it's the really great songs really hold it up past all of the more middling, mediocre songs. Like, in particular, If Eternity Should Fail is another one of my favorite Iron Maiden songs. I think it is absolutely spectacular. The title track, Book of Souls, is spectacular. Other ones that I enjoy a lot, The Red and the Black is a really fun, long epic. Tears of a Clown, not many people talk about that one. I think that one's just really fun, really under-celebrated. Speed of Light is all right. There's a couple other decent ones in there. There's definitely some more mediocre ones, but all in all, I think it's just a really solid album. One of the better of the reunion era. Just really good. Next up, I've got another classic Bruce album, and that is another one that's a lot of people's favorite, and it is Power Slave. Now, Power Slave, you've got the title track, Power Slave. A lot of people's favorite, not my favorite. I think it's good. I don't think it's great. But what makes this album for me is definitely songs like Aces High. Great way to start it, and great way to close it. And one of my favorite, I'm saying that a lot now, Rime of the Ancient Mariner. So good. Probably the best epic Iron Maiden song out there, like hands down. Just absolutely a fantastic song. And then you've got another all-time classic with 2 Minutes to Midnight, and another decent one with Back in the Village. The rest aren't really noteworthy for me, but all the ones that I've listed before are just absolutely just classic, fantastic Iron Maiden songs, and hold this album way above the rest of the pack. And next up at number 3, just ahead of Power Slave by a bit, I've got Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. I think one of the more overlooked of the classic Bruce era albums. This one's just got some really great songs in there. And one thing before I even get into the songs, much like this next pick, I think this is one of the more consistent Iron Maiden albums in terms of tone, in terms of quality. It just feels like all of these songs really fit in sort of the tone and the story that they're going for. I love how they start the first song off with the 7 Deadly Sins, and that's the same way they end the last song. It's just a really awesome narrative, and that one holds this one, just gives us another edge that makes me enjoy it even more. As for the songs, they're amazing. You got Moonchild, absolutely spectacular opener. You got Only the Good Die Young is a great closer. title track Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, another fantastic Iron Maiden, ballads, epic stories. Um, and then my favorite from the album is definitely The Evil That Men Do, another great one. You've got other solid ones in there like The Clairvoyant, all around just just an absolutely awesome album. These other two just ahead by a bit. But yeah, next up at second place, this is the one that's gonna make y'all dislike, it's gonna make you hate this video pretty much, because my next at second place I've got Senjutsu. I'm pretty sure I'm the only person on the world who would put this album so high. But if you've seen my review for it, I absolutely love this album. It it honestly, it was very close to my number one, but this album is just so fun. I think it is the most consistent when it comes to tone, when it comes to quality throughout. It almost feels like, it's a roller coaster. It feels like there's almost like a narrative of sorts, like a common connection amongst all of these different types of songs. I'd think Book of Souls has higher highs, but this one has still got some really solid songs, and it's just more consistent throughout. I think this is the most consistent album throughout, which I think is just the biggest factor. You've got Writing on the Wall, you've got Days of Future Past, you've got Hell on Earth, you've got Stratego, you've got The Time Machine. Literally, every single song is great and worth listening to, with an exception of Death of the Celts and the Parchment. But even then, like, I think they're worth listening to for the sake of the entire album. It's just, yeah, this is just such a great album. I know I've seen a lot of people put it low to mid, and I understand that if you're a classic Bruce fan and this is too new, it's too kind of out there. I totally get that, but this is what it is for me. And yeah, but coming in at number one, I have got Number of the Beast. Now, what else could it be? I know a lot of people put this at number one. I've seen a lot of people actually put it more at like number six or something like that, because they want to do like 666. I think this one absolutely is number one. There really isn't much else to say. All you have to do is list off the songs. Number of the Beast, the title track, fantastic. What else is there to say about that one? You've got Children of the Damned. You've got 22 Acacia Avenue, another, I think, more slept on song. That song is absolutely spectacular. You've got a decent opener in Invaders. You've got freaking Run to the Hills. So freaking good. Such a great song. And then we've got The Elephant in the Room. And that, of course, is Hallowed Be Thy Name. Absolutely. Not just one of the best Maiden songs, but one of the best metal songs of all time. The rest of them that I haven't listed, I definitely don't love as much. I don't think it's quite as consistent as Senjutsu. But all in all, this one, just the highs on this song, no other Maiden album reaches, in my opinion. I think, like, there's 5 songs on here that I would give, like, perfect 5 out of 5s to. And really, this is just the best Maiden album, in my opinion. I don't think there will be a better one than it, although Senjutsu did come sort of close. But Number of the Beast, best Maiden album. And that is all I got for you. So let me know how you would rank the 17 Iron Maiden albums. Let me know which part of my list you hated the most. If for some reason you liked this video, leave a like, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff if you want. I might rank my top 20 Maiden songs in the future. Let me know what other bands or movies, games you'd like to see a review or a ranking for. But that's it. I'll see you later.